The Whispering, a fantasy sleep story, presented by Bedtime Stories. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath. And now, let the story begin. The last sliver of twilight clung to the sky, painting the clouds in shades of lavender and rose before surrendering to the deep, inky embrace of night. In the village of Silverwood, nestled deep within the ancient whispering wilds, the air hummed with the quiet magic of a world preparing for slumber. Elara lay in her bed, a quilt of woven moonlight threads pulled up to her chin, her eyes wide and bright. Her room was a cozy alcove carved into the base of a towering, ancient oak, its bark a swirling tapestry of silver and moss. Moonlight, filtered through leaves that shimmered like polished emeralds, dappled her floor. She didn't need a lamp. The room itself seemed to glow with a soft inner light. Luminescent moss, cultivated carefully by her grandmother, traced patterns along the walls, casting a gentle emerald gleam on her collection of smooth river stones and dried sprigs of dreamberry. Beyond her window, the sounds of Silverwood began their nightly symphony. The sleepy chirps of the iridescent glowbugs, tiny motes of light that danced among the branches. The rustle of the wind through the leaves of the ancient trees, a sound Elara knew intimately, for it was more than just wind. It was the trees sighing their old stories, a language only a few, like Elara, could truly hear. She could pick out the wisdom of the sturdy oaks, the playful whispers of the willow wands by the stream, and the hushed secrets of the elder firs that guarded the village's edge. Tonight, however, there was a new note, a subtle undercurrent that threaded through the familiar chorus. It was a sound like brushed silk, like far-off chimes carried on a breath, so faint it was almost swallowed by the night, yet so persistent it tugged at the edges of her awareness. It was the whispering. Elara had heard it before, always just at the periphery, a ghost of a sound that melted away when she tried to focus. But tonight, it felt closer, clearer, like someone was speaking just beyond a closed door, their words indistinct but their presence undeniable. It wasn't menacing, not exactly. More like a melancholy sigh, a longing. A soft knock sounded at her door, and then it creaked open. Nana Lyra, her grandmother, entered, bringing with her the scent of wild thyme and old stories. Nana Lyra was a woman woven from starlight and earth, her hair a silver braid that cascaded down her back, her eyes like polished amber, warm and knowing. She wore a simple tunic of forest green, embroidered with swirling patterns that seemed to shift and flow in the dim light. "Still awake, little stargazer?" Nana Lyra's voice was like the soft murmur of the river, comforting and deep. She moved to the side of Elara's bed, her steps silent on the moss-soft floor. Elara nodded, pushing herself up to sit, her blanket pooling around her waist. "The trees are telling a new story tonight, Nana, and there's another sound. A new one? Or perhaps an old one I haven't heard so clearly before." Nana Lyra settled onto a small stool beside the bed, her gaze thoughtful as she listened to the night beyond the window. Her fingers, gnarled and wise, gently stroked Elara's hair. "Ah," she said, a soft hum in her throat. "The whispering, you mean?" Elara's eyes widened. "You hear it too?" She had never thought to ask. Most people in Silverwood heard the wind, the animals, the normal sounds of the wilds. But the true language of the trees, the pulse of the living world, that was her secret, or so she thought. Nana Lyra chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. "Little one, I have heard the whispering for longer than you have drawn breath. It is ancient, older than Silverwood itself. It comes and goes, sometimes strong, sometimes fading to a mere memory. Tonight, it is indeed clearer." She paused, her gaze distant, as if listening to something beyond Elara's hearing. "It sings of change, of stirring." Elara leaned forward, her heart quickening. "What does it sing of, Nana? What whisper the whispering?" Nana Lyra picked up one of Elara's smooth river stones, turning it over in her palm. The stone, infused with a faint natural luminescence, glowed softly. "Many things, my dear. Some say it is the breath of the world itself, exhaling ancient magic into the air. Others believe it is the collective dream of all living things, rising from the earth to touch the stars. And some, the old ones, whisper that it is the voice of the heartwood calling out." "The heartwood?" Elara echoed, a thrill of wonder running through her. She knew the legends of the heartwood, the mythical, Impossibly ancient tree said to be the very source of all life and magic in the Whispering Wilds, its roots reaching to the core of the world. But it was just a story, wasn't it? A beautiful tale for children. Nana Lyra smiled, a knowing glint in her amber eyes. Yes, the Heartwood. Though few believe it is more than a legend these days. Our village Silverwood was founded on the edge of the Whispering Wilds, where the magic is strongest, where the veil between our world and the spirit world is thinnest. Our ancestors came here, drawn by the power, by the living pulse of the land. She gestured vaguely towards the window, towards the impenetrable darkness of the deeper forest. The wilds are not like other forests, Ilara. They live and breathe with a magic that is both wild and gentle. The trees guide travelers, the streams sing forgotten melodies, and the very air carries the scent of possibilities. And the whispering, it is the voice of that magic. Why haven't I heard it so clearly before? Ilara asked, her mind alight with questions. Perhaps, Nana Lyra said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, because you are growing, little Ilara. Your ears are opening to the deeper truths of the world. Not everyone can hear the whispering. It chooses those with a certain resonance, a sensitivity to the threads of magic that weave through everything. She tapped Ilara gently on the forehead. You have that resonance, my stargazer. You always have. Ilara thought back. She remembered seeing the shimmering trails left by the glowbugs, not just their light, but the faint, silvery dust they shed, a dust that seemed to sparkle with tiny, unheard sounds. She remembered the way the flowers in their garden sometimes hummed a quiet tune when no one was looking, and how the stones by the river seemed to pulse with a slow, steady beat under her hand. She had always thought these were just her imagination. Now, she wondered, but what does it wanting? Ilara pressed, the sound outside growing infinitesimally stronger, a faint, ethereal melody that seemed to wind around her heart. Nana Lyra sighed, a long, wistful sound. That, my dear, is the true mystery. The whispering is not a voice that speaks in words, not usually. It speaks in feelings, in impressions, in currents of magic. Sometimes it warns, sometimes it guides, and sometimes it calls. Calls for what? For attention, for understanding. Perhaps for help, Nana Lyra said, her gaze fixed on the deepest shadows of the wilds beyond Ilara's window. The magic of the wilds, while ancient and powerful, is not unchanging. It ebbs and flows, like the tides. There have been times, long ago, when the whispering faded to nothing more than a memory, and the wilds themselves seemed to lose their vibrancy. The colors dulled, the songs quieted, and a deep weariness settled upon the land. What happened then? Ilara asked, a prickle of unease settling in her stomach. Then, sometimes a new voice would rise, or an old one would reawaken. A hero, a seeker, a dreamer with an open heart. Someone who could truly hear the whispering and understand its call. They would venture into the deeper wilds, following the sound, and when they returned, if they returned, the wilds would breathe again, vibrant and strong. Ilara shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of the old tales. Are you saying the whispering is calling for someone now? Nana Lyra smiled, a faint, enigmatic curve of her lips. It is certainly calling, my dear. Whether it is calling for someone specific or simply expressing its ancient heart, only time will tell. But listen closely, Ilara. Listen with more than just your ears. Listen with your heart, with your spirit, for the whispering has many secrets, and sometimes it shares them with those who are ready to hear. She stood then, her presence filling the small room with a gentle warmth. It is late, little stargazer. Let the dreams of the Heartwood guide your sleep, and know that the wilds are always listening, just as you are. Nana Lyra pressed a soft kiss to Ilara's forehead, her touch leaving a faint tingle, like static electricity. As she left, closing the door softly behind her, the room felt darker, yet also more alive. Ilara lay back down, pulling the moon quilt up high. The familiar sounds of the night were still there, but now, above them, below them, woven through them, was the whispering. It was no longer just a faint sound, it was a presence. It felt like a gentle current pulling at her, a silent invitation. She closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind raced with Nana Lyra's words, with the legends of the Heartwood, and with the idea of being a seeker, someone chosen to hear the deeper truths. She focused, letting her senses expand beyond the confines of her room, beyond the village. She imagined her awareness drifting like a feather on the wind, out towards the ancient, untouched depths of the whispering wilds. And as she did, the whispering grew stronger. It wasn't just a sound, it was a tapestry of sensations. A cool breath against her skin, a faint scent of unknown blossoms and rain-kissed earth, a feeling of vastness and ancientness that made her chest ache with a profound, beautiful longing. It felt lonely. That was the clearest impression. A deep, ancient loneliness, as if something magnificent and vital was slowly fading, calling out for connection, for remembrance. Elara opened her eyes again, staring up at the patterns of luminous moss on her ceiling. She wasn't scared. She was intrigued, deeply and powerfully so. The idea of the wilds losing their vibrancy, of the magic fading, filled her with a strange sadness. She loved Silverwood, loved the way the air shimmered with invisible magic, loved the songs of the trees and the glow of the moss. The thought of it all growing quiet, dull, was unbearable. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the mossy floor. She went to her window and pushed it open wider, letting the cool night air brush against her face. The whispering was a soft caress against her ears now, a gentle melody without words, but full of meaning. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the Deepwood, the oldest, most untamed part of the whispering wilds, an area few ever ventured into. The Deepwood was a place of legend, of ancient guardians and forgotten paths. Children were taught never to go there, not alone. Yet, tonight, it didn't feel threatening. It felt inviting. Elara stood there for a long time, watching the stars wheel slowly across the sky, listening. She felt a connection to the whispering, a subtle hum in her own bones that resonated with its ancient call. It was as if a part of her had been waiting for this sound, for this invitation. She wasn't sure what it meant, or what she was supposed to do, but a seed of determination began to sprout in her heart. She wanted to understand. She wanted to know what the whispering was trying to say. Perhaps, she thought, sleep would come easier if she just understood a little more. Just a little. The next morning, the first rays of the sun lily peeked over the eastern peaks, painting the wilds in shades of gold and emerald. Elara rose with a new sense of purpose. The whispering still lingered, a faint echo in her mind, a promise of something waiting to be discovered. After a breakfast of sun-warmed berry bread and dew tea with Nana Lyra, Elara helped tend to the glowing moss patches around their cottage. Her home, like all homes in Silverwood, was built into or around the living trees, seamlessly blending with nature. The paths were made of smoothly worn river stones, and the fences were living vines, braided and coaxed into protective barriers. Every aspect of their lives was intertwined with the magic of the wilds. As she worked, she found herself humming a tune she didn't quite remember learning, a melody that felt ancient and familiar. A tune that seemed to resonate with the faint, ethereal sound of the whispering. She looked up at the towering trees that surrounded Silverwood, their leaves shimmering in the morning light. They seemed to be watching her, their silent wisdom palpable in the air. Later that day, Elara decided to visit the village's storykeeper, Old Man Thistle. He lived in a burrow beneath the largest elder fir, his home smelling of parchment, dried herbs, and forgotten lore. He was a wizened figure with a beard like spun cloud and eyes that held the twinkle of distant stars. He knew every legend, every myth, every whispered tale of the wilds. "Good morning, Old Man Thistle," Elara said, stepping into his cozy, lamplit burrow. Books and scrolls were stacked everywhere, some bound in leather, others in woven bark. Tiny glow beetles, kept in glass jars, provided a soft, pulsing light. Old Man Thistle looked up from a scroll, peering over the top of his spectacles. "Ah, little stargazer, what brings you to my humble delve today? A tale of the sky whales, perhaps, or the mischievous river sprites?" "Neither, sir," Elara said, her voice earnest. "I wanted to ask about the whispering. Nana Lyra told me it's grown stronger, and that it might be calling out." Old Man Thistle's eyes, usually alight with stories, grew serious. He slowly rolled up his scroll, placing it carefully on a high shelf. "The whispering, eh? A weighty topic for such young ears, Elara, but not an unimportant one." He gestured for her to sit on a low stool, carved from a tree stump. "Nana Lyra is a wise woman," he began, his voice a low rumble. "She speaks true. The whispering has indeed intensified. I felt it too, a subtle tremor in the old magic." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "The whispering, as your Nana likely told you, is many things. But at its heart, it is the voice of the wild's health. When it grows faint, the wilds languish. When it grows strong, well, that can mean many things. Sometimes a great awakening. Sometimes a great need. Sometimes a great need." "A need?" Elara prompted, her heart thrumming. "Aye, the legends speak of ancient guardians, forgotten artifacts, or hidden springs of magic that sustain the wilds. When these falter, the whispering cries out. It seeks balance, it seeks restoration." He paused, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "There's a very old tale, not often told, of a time when the whispering grew so loud it became a lament, a deep, sorrowful song that echoed through every living thing. That was when the blight began." Elara gasped. She knew about the blight, a dark, creeping sickness that had threatened to consume the wild centuries ago, turning vibrant trees to brittle husks and silencing the songs of the streams. It was a time of great darkness, only averted by the sacrifice of the legendary Sunsinger. "The blight was eventually defeated," Old Man Thistle continued, his voice heavy, "but the scars remain deep within the wilds, and the whispering, in its loudest, most urgent form, is often a prelude to something significant, a challenge, an opportunity, a path that needs to be walked. But who walks it?" Elara asked. "Who hears it clearly enough?" Old Man Thistle's gaze met hers, and there was a profound knowing in his eyes. "Those, Elara, who are born with the gift of resonance, those who can hear the heartbeat of the world, those who are, perhaps, chosen by the wilds themselves." He smiled faintly. "Like you, little stargazer." Elara felt a flush rise in her cheeks. "Me? But I'm just a child." "Aga is but a measure of seasons, Elara, Old Man," Thistle said gently. "The true measure of a spirit is its openness, its courage, its connection. You have always been attuned to the wilds, haven't you? You see the shimmer, you hear the songs, you feel the pulse." He picked up a small, intricately carved wooden bird from his desk. "This little fellow, a whispering wren, is said to be able to carry messages on the wind, even across the deepest valleys. It is a symbol of guidance for those who seek to understand the whispering." He handed it to her. The wood was smooth and warm against her palm, and she felt a faint vibration within it, a tiny echo of the sound she now carried in her heart. "What am I supposed to do?" Elara asked, clutching the wren, her mind reeling with the weight of his words. Old Man Thistle leaned back, his eyes twinkling once more. "For now, Elara, you listen, you observe. You let the whispering guide your heart. The wilds have a way of revealing their paths to those who are ready to walk them. Keep your ears open, and your spirit brave. The journey often begins not with a grand quest, but with a single, small step into the unknown." As Elara left Old Man Thistle's burrow, the wooden wren clutched tightly in her hand. She felt a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The world around her, which she had always loved, now felt imbued with a deeper, more urgent meaning. The whispering was no longer just a background sound. It was a living message, a call to adventure, and somehow, she knew, it was meant for her. She walked towards the edge of the village, towards the ancient, gnarled trees that marked the beginning of the deep wood. The air grew cooler here, the light dimmer, even in the midday sun. The trees were thicker, their branches intertwined like gnarled fingers, their leaves a darker shade of emerald. And from within their shadowy depths, the whispering pulsed with an undeniable pull, a siren song of forgotten magic and ancient secrets. It felt like a path was opening, just for her. She walked towards the edge of the village, towards the ancient, gnarled trees that marked the beginning of the deep wood. The air grew cooler here, the light dimmer, even in the midday sun. The trees were thicker, their branches intertwined like gnarled fingers, their leaves a darker shade of emerald. And from within their shadowy depths, the whispering pulsed with an undeniable pull, a siren song of forgotten magic and ancient secrets. It felt like a path was opening, just for her. With each step Elara took, the air grew heavier, not with oppressive weight, but with a profound ancient stillness that hummed beneath the surface. The path, barely more than a deer trail worn smooth by centuries of unseen passage, was quickly swallowed by the forest floor, carpeted in deep, spongy moss and fallen leaves. Overhead, the canopy thickened, lacing together so tightly that only slivers of sunlight, like scattered gold dust, managed to pierce through, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. These weren't the familiar, friendly woods of her childhood, where she'd gathered berries and chased fireflies. This was the deep wood, a place spoken of in hushed tones, a realm where time itself seemed to slow, and the very trees held memories older than the first human settlements. The whispering, once a distant echo, now resonated within her very bones, a gentle thrumming that guided her without words. It wasn't a sound in her ears, but a feeling, a magnetic north pulling her deeper, past trees whose trunks were wider than any two oxen, their bark like wrinkled faces carved by the ages. Moss, thick and emerald green, draped from their limbs like ancient beards, occasionally shimmering with a faint internal luminescence that pulsed softly, like slow heartbeats in the gloom. Strange, bell-shaped flowers, their petals veined with silver, hung from slender stalks, emitting a faint sweet scent that was both intoxicating and strangely familiar. Elara found herself moving with a certainty she hadn't known she possessed. Her initial apprehension, a prickle of fear at the unknown, began to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of wonder. Every rustle of leaves, every distant call of an unseen bird, seemed to whisper secrets meant only for her. She saw creatures she'd only heard legends of, skitter squirrels, their fur a mosaic of moss and bark, darting up ancient trunks with eyes that glowed like twin embers, and the silent, majestic flight of gloom moths, their wings as wide as her outstretched arms, patterned with luminous dust that left trails of light in the dim air. They moved with an unhurried grace, undisturbed by her presence, as if she were merely another part of the forest, a silent observer. The ground underfoot became a labyrinth of gnarled roots, thick as a man's waist, weaving together to form natural bridges and treacherous hollows. Elara navigated them with an instinctual balance, her boots barely disturbing the soft loam. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth, rich loam, and something else, something metallic and ancient, like rain on old stone. The whispering intensified, not louder, but more focused, drawing her towards a particular direction where the trees seemed to grow even closer, their branches forming a shadowy archway. As she passed beneath this living arch, the last vestiges of the sun's light were swallowed. Here, the deep wood truly lived up to its name. The primary illumination came from the forest itself. Luminescent fungi dotted the tree trunks and undersides of fallen logs, glowing in shades of soft blue, violet, and pale green, casting an ethereal glow that made the shadows dance and stretch like silent guardians. The moss, already shimmering, now seemed to breathe with a collective, gentle light. These were the sundapples, not sunlight at all, but motes of pure condensed magic that drifted lazily through the air, occasionally coalescing into small fleeting spheres of light that drifted past her, then dissipated. The path ahead opened into a clearing, but it was unlike any clearing she had ever seen. The ground here was not earth, but a vast, flat expanse of stone, smooth and dark, veined with glowing lines that pulsed in rhythm with the whispering. In the center of this stone clearing stood a single colossal tree, far older and grander than any she had encountered so far. Its trunk was so wide, she imagined a dozen people couldn't link hands around it. Its bark was not rough, but smooth and polished like obsidian, and etched with intricate swirling patterns that seemed to shift and reform under her gaze. From its branches hung not leaves, but what appeared to be thousands of crystal chimes, each one catching and amplifying the ambient light, ringing with a soft melodic hum that merged perfectly with the internal thrum of the whispering. This was the heartwood tree, a legendary sentinel of the deep wood, said to be the oldest living thing in the land, a silent witness to countless ages. As Elara approached the heartwood tree, the air around her grew thick with magic, a palpable energy that made her skin tingle and her hair stand on end. The whispering was no longer just a pull, it was a symphony, rising and falling, a chorus of forgotten voices and ancient power. She reached out a hesitant hand, drawn by an irresistible urge, and placed her palm against the smooth obsidian bark of the tree. The moment her skin touched the ancient surface, a jolt, not of pain but of pure, raw energy, surged through her. Her vision blurred, and for a fleeting instant, she saw not the present, but a cascade of images, towering figures moving through mist, hands weaving intricate patterns of light, ancient rituals performed under starless skies, the deep wood not as a forest, but as a vibrant, pulsing heart of the world. She saw snippets of the past, glimpses of an age when magic flowed freely, when the veil between worlds was thin, and beings of immense power walked the earth. She saw the creation of the whispering itself, not as a random phenomenon, but as a deliberate act, a call to those who could hear it, a beacon for a chosen few. The images faded, leaving her breathless, her heart pounding. The connection, however, remained. It was as if the heartwood tree had awakened something within her, a dormant current of magic that had been waiting for this moment. The whispering now spoke directly to her, not in words, but in a clear, undeniable knowing. It told her of a forgotten path, a hidden purpose, and a destiny intertwined with the very fate of the deep wood. It spoke of a great slumber, a fading magic, and a need for renewal. She withdrew her hand, feeling a profound shift within her. She was no longer just Ilara, the village girl who heard strange whispers. She was something more, something attuned to the ancient magic of this place. The crystal chimes on the heartwood tree began to chime louder, their melody weaving a complex tapestry of sound that filled the clearing. And then, from the base of the tree, something stirred. The moss at the roots of the heartwood tree, usually a uniform emerald, began to ripple and part. A faint golden light emanated from beneath it, growing in intensity until it revealed a perfectly circular opening, no wider than Ilara's shoulders, leading down into darkness. The air that drifted from the opening was cool and smelled of deep earth and ozone, hinting at untold depths. This was the path the whispering had led her to. This was the next step. Body. Ilara knelt, peering into the shadowy maw. She felt no fear, only a profound sense of inevitability. The whispering now pulsed with a singular, clear message. Ego.she. The root passage awaits. The heart of the deep wood calls. Wanadi. Yedjedane. Taking a deep breath, Ilara squeezed through the opening. The passage was narrow, forcing her to move slowly, carefully. The golden light from the entrance quickly faded, replaced by the faint, consistent glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the damp earth walls. The air was thick and heavy, laden with the scent of minerals and ancient stone. The roots of the heartwood tree, thick and fibrous, formed a natural tunnel, twisting and turning, occasionally illuminated by clusters of glowing crystals embedded in the earthy ceiling. As she descended, the tunnel began to widen, eventually opening into a vast cavernous space. Here, the roots of the heartwood tree spread out like an inverted canopy, anchoring themselves into the ceiling and walls, dripping with shimmering dewdrops that caught the faint light. The floor was surprisingly level, made of smooth, dark stone, much like the clearing above. And in the center of this colossal chamber, bathed in an ethereal, shifting light, stood what appeared to be a massive, crystalline structure. It was a formation of pure shimmering crystal, spiraling upwards like a colossal, multifaceted spire, reaching towards the root-laden ceiling. Its surfaces pulsed with all the colors of the deep wood's magic, deep blues, vibrant greens, soft violets, and the occasional flash of brilliant gold. Within its depths, Ilara could see intricate patterns, like frozen lightning, and what looked like trapped motes of pure light, slowly drifting. This was no natural formation. It was clearly a creation of immense magical power, a focal point, a heart within a heart. The whispering here was overwhelming, a silent roar of energy that vibrated through every cell of her body. It was a language without words, a story told in pure sensation, and Ilara understood. This was the nexus, the true heart of the deep wood, the source of the ancient magic that sustained the forest, and perhaps the entire land. As she stepped closer to the crystalline spire, the ground beneath her feet began to subtly hum. The air around the nexus crackled with energy, and the individual facets of the crystal structure began to glow brighter, cycling through colors with increasing speed. She could feel the magic flowing into her, through her, awakening something deep within her own being. It felt like a homecoming, a return to a part of herself she hadn't known was missing. From the deepest part of the nexus, a single pure beam of golden light erupted, shooting upwards towards the roots of the heartwood tree, then seeming to dissipate into the earth above. The whispering intensified, not just within her, but echoing through the cavern, a chorus of ancient voices that spoke of balance, of renewal, of a great threat looming over the world. Then, from the base of the crystalline spire, 3 distinct smaller crystals began to rise from the stone floor. Each one was perfectly formed, glowing with its own unique internal light. One a deep verdant green, another a vibrant sky blue, and the third a fiery sunset orange. They hovered in the air before her, spinning slowly, radiating warmth and power. The whispering, now clearer than ever, communicated a new instruction, a task of paramount importance. These were the heart crystals, fragments of the Nexus's power, imbued with specific aspects of the Deepwood's magic. They were meant for her. They were to be carried, protected, and used to reawaken ancient ley lines, to mend the fractured magic of the land, and to prepare for a coming darkness that threatened to consume all light. Elara reached out, her hands trembling slightly, and gently cupped the 3 heart crystals. As her fingers closed around them, they pulsed with a synchronized rhythm, their light merging into a soft, warm glow that enveloped her hands. She felt a surge of power, a connection to the Deepwood and its magic that was profound and absolute. She understood that this was not the end of her journey, but merely the beginning. The whispering had led her to her purpose. Now, she had a quest. Suddenly, a shift in the air, a faint tremor in the cavern, drew her attention. The light from the Nexus flickered, and the pervasive hum of magic seemed to waver, momentarily dimming. A new sensation, cold and sharp, pierced through the ancient warmth of the Deepwood's heart. It was a feeling of intrusion, of a presence approaching, something discordant and unwelcome. The whispering, which had been a song of guidance, now sharpened into a warning, a frantic, silent alarm. The magic of the Nexus began to pulse irregularly, like a troubled heart. Elara knew with a chilling certainty that whatever was coming, it was not meant to find her here, not yet. She had found her purpose, but now she had to protect it, and herself, from whatever dark force now threatened the Deepwood. The path was clear, but it was fraught with peril, and the true test of her courage was only just beginning. The path was clear, but it was fraught with peril, and the true test of her courage was only just beginning. The Nexus, a moment ago a beacon of wonder, now screamed a silent alarm within Elara. The irregular pulse intensified, rattling the very air, vibrating through the mossy ground beneath her feet. It felt like the Deepwood itself was convulsing, its ancient heart stuttering. Around her, the colossal trees, usually stoic and silent sentinels, began to creak and groan, a symphony of distressed wood. Shadows, already long in the twilight, stretched and deepened unnaturally, coiling like unseen serpents around the gnarled roots and ancient trunks. The air grew heavy, thick, with a strange cloying chill that had nothing to do with the fading warmth of the day. Elara's internal compass, the harmonious song that had guided her to her purpose, had mutated into a frantic, dissonant drumbeat, a primal urge to move. She understood with a clarity that sliced through her rising fear that the nascent magic within her, the burgeoning connection to the Nexus, was not just a gift but a vulnerability. Whatever force was stirring, it was drawn to powerful magic, and the Nexus was the heart of it all. To stay here, to wait, would be to invite disaster, not just upon herself, but upon the very essence of the Deepwood. Her purpose was found, yes, but it was fragile, a tender sprout needing protection from a sudden, encroaching frost. She had to secure this knowledge, secure herself, and find a place where she could truly understand the nature of this growing threat. With a deep breath, Elara made her decision. Not deeper into the Nexus, for that was the epicenter of the danger, but away from it, into the ancient, less-traveled parts of the Deepwood, where old magic slept and forgotten pathways lay hidden. She turned from the throbbing heart of the Nexus, her gaze sweeping across the magnificent, threatened landscape, and plunged into the deepening shadows, relying on instinct and the desperate, urgent rhythm of her inner song. Her escape was a blur of motion and heightened senses. The forest, once a friendly maze, now felt like a living entity in distress, its usual comforting sounds replaced by hushed rustlings and the unsettling silence of creatures gone into hiding. Elara moved swiftly, her light steps barely disturbing the fallen leaves. She pushed through curtains of bioluminescent moss that usually glowed with a gentle warmth, but now pulsed erratically, their light flickering like dying embers. Her innate connection to the forest, A subtle hum she hadn't consciously noticed until now was screaming with dissonant notes. She could feel the faint wrongness in the very soil beneath her boots, a creeping cold that wasn't natural. As she delved deeper, the familiar sense of damp earth and sweet wood gave way to an acrid metallic tang that prickled her nose. The air grew heavier, colder, and a thin, sickly mist began to weave through the undergrowth, clinging to the ancient ferns and the silver bark of the elder trees. Elara's heart hammered, but a strange resolve settled within her. This wasn't just about her hair anymore. It was about the deep wood, the nexus, and all the magical life within it. Her journey was not without its trials. Small, usually curious woodland sprites, creatures of pure light and mischief, darted past her with wide, fearful eyes, their tiny forms shuddering. Once, she saw a magnificent stag, its antlers usually crowned with living moss, standing frozen, its usually vibrant coat dull, and its eyes wide with an ancient terror. A shiver ran down Elara's spine. This dark force wasn't merely destructive. It was corrupting, draining the very vitality from the living world. She remembered whispers from the ancient scrolls she had devoured in the Nexus library, tales of a blight that had almost consumed the deep wood in an age long past, a shadow blight that twisted light into sorrow and life into decay. Could this be its return? Thought was chilling. The deep wood, for all its ancient power, was not invulnerable. Days blurred into nights as Elara journeyed, always pushing deeper, always seeking a place of safety, a refuge where she could gather her thoughts and understand her new, terrifying purpose. She subsisted on forest berries and clear spring water, her senses hyper-alert, her nascent magic stirring within her. Not yet a controlled power, but a keen intuition, a heightened awareness of the subtle shifts in the magical fabric of the forest. She avoided open paths, preferring the dense thickets and forgotten trails known only to the most ancient creatures. One evening, as the last sliver of twilight bled from the sky, Elara paused atop a ridge overlooking a vast, ancient valley. What she saw sent a fresh wave of dread through her. Below, where a mighty river usually wound its sparkling path, the water was sluggish and murky, reflecting no light. And in the heart of the valley, where the most verdant and ancient trees should have stood, was a clearing, but not one of peace. It was a vast, circular scar of desolation, utterly devoid of life. The trees were not just dead. They were twisted, blackened husks, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. A sickly greenish-black mist hung heavy over the clearing, refusing to dissipate even under the faint moonlight. Within that blighted circle, Elara felt it, a cold, suffocating pressure, a void that seemed to suck the very warmth and light from the world around it. It was a malignancy, a cancerous growth feeding on the deep wood's vibrant essence. This was no mere shadow beast. This was something far more insidious, a force that sought not just to destroy, but to unmake. She felt a powerful surge of negative energy emanate from its core, a chilling echo of ancient sorrow and consuming hunger. This was the source of the irregular pulse in the nexus, the cause of the forest's suffering. This was the Shadow Weaver, or a manifestation of its power, a monstrous entity that sought to consume the Deepwood's magic, starting with the nexus itself. And Elara, with her unique burgeoning connection to that very nexus, was intrinsically tied to its fate. She was not just protecting herself or a secret, she was a vital piece of the Deepwood's defense, perhaps the only one who could truly activate its ancient protective wards or restore its balance. Her purpose had expanded, growing heavier, more urgent. She wasn't just a seeker of knowledge, she was a guardian, a potential savior. But to fight such a force, she needed more than instinct. She needed guidance, knowledge, and power. She needed a sanctuary, not just from the Shadow Weaver, but a place where ancient light still burned bright, where she could learn to wield the magic now awakening within her. Her thoughts turned to the legends she had read. The Moon Petal Sanctuary, a place whispered to be a haven of ancient light magic, hidden deep within the most secluded part of the Deepwood, far from the reach of surface dwellers. It was said to be guarded by beings as old as the forest itself. It was a long shot, a perilous journey through increasingly corrupted lands, but it was her only hope. Driven by this new desperate purpose, Elara pressed on, the image of the blighted clearing searing itself into her mind. The moon, a sliver of silver, seemed to dim as she drew closer to where the sanctuary was rumored to be. The air grew colder still, the metallic tang stronger. Even here, in these supposedly untouched lands, the insidious tendrils of the Shadow Weaver's influence were beginning to creep. The luminous moss she passed was duller, its pulse weaker. Some of the ancient trees showed faint streaks of black along their bark, like veins of obsidian. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of travel, Elara stumbled upon a hidden glade. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The trees here were not mere wood and leaf, but seemed woven from strands of moonlight and starlight, their leaves shimmering with an internal luminescence. In the center of the glade stood a single colossal tree, its trunk wider than a small cottage, its branches reaching into the heavens, forming a canopy of living light. From its branches hung delicate bell-shaped flowers, each petal glowing with a soft, warm light that pulsed in a gentle, rhythmic heartbeat, the legendary moon petals. This was the Moon Petal Sanctuary. Yet even here, a subtle pall had fallen. The light of the moon petals, though still beautiful, seemed a shade dimmer, a whisper less vibrant than the ancient legends describe. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the ground, a dissonant hum beneath the sanctuary's usual harmonious thrum. The Shadow Weaver's influence was indeed reaching even this sacred place. As Elara stepped into the glade, the moon petals flared, then dimmed slightly, as if sensing her presence, her fear, and the shadow that followed her. The air grew still, and a voice, ancient and resonant as the roots of the eldest tree, yet soft as a moth's wing, drifted from the colossal tree. "Welcome, child of the Nexus. We have awaited your coming, though we hoped it would be under brighter stars." From the trunk of the great tree, a figure slowly began to emerge. It was a dryad, but unlike any Elara had ever imagined. Her skin was bark, mottled with moss and ancient lichen, her hair a cascade of living leaves that shimmered with the light of the moon petals. Her eyes, deep pools of emerald and amber, held the wisdom of millennia and a profound sorrow. This was Lyra, the ancient guardian of the Moon Petal Sanctuary, a being almost as old as the deep wood itself. Lyra's gaze, gentle yet penetrating, swept over Elara, seeing not just the girl, but the intricate tapestry of nascent magic within her. The direct connection to the troubled heart of the Nexus. "The Shadow Weaver casts a long shadow indeed," Lyra murmured, her voice a rustle of leaves. "It has been many ages since such a blight threatened the deep wood. You carry its mark, child, and the promise of its end." Elara, overwhelmed by the Dryad's presence and the confirmation of her fears, could only nod, a single tear tracing a path down her dust-smudged cheek. "The Nexus, it's in danger. The deep wood, it's dying in places." Lyra stepped fully from the tree, her movements fluid and graceful, her form radiating a faint protective warmth. Indeed, the Shadow Weaver is a creature born of ancient imbalance, a profound grief that festered in the heart of a forgotten forest spirit, twisting its light into an all-consuming darkness. It feeds on sorrow and discord, seeking to drain the very essence of life and magic, starting with the Nexus, the wellspring of our world. "But what can I do?" Elara asked, her voice small. "I only just found my purpose. I don't know how to fight something like this." A faint, knowing smile touched Lyra's lips, crinkling the bark-like skin around her ancient eyes. "You are the Nexus's chosen, Elara. The magic that flows through you is the very light the Shadow Weaver seeks to extinguish. But you must learn to wield it, to understand its balance, and to mend the tears in the deep wood's song." Lyra gestured to a patch of moon petals, their light flickering more weakly than the others. "Even here, its touch weakens the light." Lyra led Elara to a clearing beneath the greatest moon petal tree, its branches forming a natural luminous sanctuary. "We do not have much time, child. The Shadow Weaver grows stronger with every passing moment, every flicker of fear, every shadow that lengthens. But here, within the embrace of the moon petals, you can begin to awaken the true potential of your Nexus-born magic." For days that felt like weeks, Elara trained under Lyra's patient, ancient guidance. Lyra taught her to listen to the deep wood, not just with her ears, but with her very soul. Elara learned to sense the flow of magic within the roots of the trees, the shimmer in the air, the pulse in every living leaf. Lyra showed her how to draw upon the light of the moon petals, to channel its pure, untainted energy through her own body. Her first lessons were in sensing balance. Lyra would have her place her hands on a stone warmed by the sun and feel the earth's energy, then on a patch of shadowed moss and feel the coolness. Shadow is not evil, Elara, Lyra explained gently. It is merely the absence of light, a necessary balance. But the shadow weaver twists this balance, transforming it into a void that consumes all. Elara began to manipulate light, starting with small shimmering motes that danced at her fingertips, then growing into soft protective glows that could ward off the encroaching chill of the shadow weaver's influence. She learned to project her senses, reaching out with her mind to feel the subtle vibrations of the forest, to hear the silent language of the roots, to understand the whispers of the wind as it carried tales from distant groves. She discovered she could soothe agitated woodland creatures with a gentle touch and a silent murmur, her connection to the deep wood deepening with every passing hour. One afternoon, as Elara practiced channeling light, a wave of profound sorrow washed over her, chilling her to the bone. It was not her own sadness, but an echo, a psychic cry from the ravaged parts of the deep wood. Lyra, sensing her distress, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. That is the shadow weaver, Elara. Its power grows. It is drawing strength from the lingering grief of the deep wood, from the pain of its ancient heart. But there is a way to sever its hold, to mend the heart of the deep wood. Lyra's ancient eyes seemed to gaze into a distant past. To truly stop the shadow weaver, you must do more than just fight its manifestations. You must heal the wound that birthed it. Deep within the heart of the Weeping Falls, a place of ancient sorrow and forgotten light, lies an artifact known as the Amulet of Verdant Light. It was crafted by the first spirits of the deep wood, imbued with the pure essence of life and balance. It is said to be able to mend the deepest corruptions, even to soothe the tormented spirit. Elara listened, her heart both heavy with the weight of this new task and alight with a determined spark. The heart of the Weeping Falls. She had heard whispers of it in the Nexus Library, a place shrouded in legend and peril, where the tears of ancient spirits were said to have carved the very rock. The journey will be perilous, Lyra continued, her voice grave. The Shadow Weaver's influence will be strongest there, for it is a place of deep emotion. But the amulet is our only hope. It will not only protect you, but amplify your own connection to the Nexus, allowing you to truly heal the deep wood and restore the balance. Elara looked at her hands, where a faint green light pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She felt stronger, more connected, but also keenly aware of the immense challenge ahead. Her training had given her tools, but the true battle lay ahead. She had found her purpose, she had begun to protect it, and now, a new, perilous quest awaited her. The path was clearer than ever, but the shadows were lengthening, and the true test of her courage was only just beginning. The path was clearer than ever, but the shadows were lengthening, and the true test of her courage was only just beginning. The morning after her vision, a crisp breeze rustled through the glade, carrying the scent of dew-kissed leaves and the faint melancholic whisper of the wind. Elara stood before Nana Maeve, her small pack slung over her shoulder, the green light on her palms now a steady, gentle glow. "The deep wood is vast, child," Nana Maeve said, her voice soft but firm. "And the gloom has twisted its paths. Trust your heart. Trust the song. And remember the lessons of the glade. Every living thing, even those touched by shadow, carries a flicker of the original light. Your task is not to destroy." Nana Maeve produced a small, intricately carved wooden flute, no bigger than Elara's hand. "This was your mother's. It carries the echoes of the glade's song. When doubt clouds your mind, or the path grows too dark, play it. Let its melody guide you back to your own truth." She also handed Elara a small pouch filled with dried berries and nuts, and a canteen of pure spring water. "And this," she added, gently placing a smooth, grey riverstone into Elara's palm, "is from the eldest riverbed. It holds the memory of flowing water, of constancy and resilience. Let it remind you that even the smallest stone can stand against the strongest current." Elara nodded, her heart a mix of trepidation and fierce resolve. She hugged Nana Maeve tightly, feeling the warmth of her embrace, a silent promise of her return. The other glade dwellers, usually bustling with morning tasks, had gathered, their eyes filled with a quiet reverence and hope. They offered small, hopeful gestures, a gentle touch on her arm, a silent nod. As Elara turned towards the ancient stone arch that marked the glade's boundary, A flash of emerald green caught her eye. A tiny iridescent hummingbird, no bigger than her thumb, hovered before her, its wings a blur. It dipped its delicate beak towards her hand, where the green light pulsed, then darted ahead, through the arch, and into the deepening shadows of the deep wood. "It is a guide," Naname murmured. "A spirit of the glade, drawn to your light. Its name is Pip. It will not speak, but it will show you the way when the path is hidden." With a deep breath, Elara stepped through the arch, leaving the familiar warmth of Whisperwind glade behind. The air immediately grew cooler, thicker, carrying the damp scent of ancient earth and decaying leaves. The sunlight, so bright in the glade, struggled to penetrate the dense canopy of the deep wood, casting long, shifting shadows that seemed to writhe with unseen life. Pip, the hummingbird, danced ahead, a tiny beacon of hope in the encroaching twilight. The deep wood was a labyrinth. Trees, gnarled and ancient, twisted their branches into impenetrable thickets. Roots, like massive serpents, coiled across the forest floor, tripping hazards hidden beneath layers of damp moss. The gloom here was not yet total darkness, but a pervasive dimness, a muted filter over the vibrant greens and browns of the forest. Sounds were muffled, movements low. The usual chorus of birdsong was replaced by a heavy silence, broken only by the drip of moisture from leaves and Elara's own footsteps. Pip flitted just out of reach, a constant, flickering guide. When Elara hesitated at a crossroads of ancient, overgrown paths, Pip would hover decisively over one, its tiny body vibrating with purpose. Elara relied on it, but also on her own growing connection to the song of the earth. She closed her eyes sometimes, feeling for the faint, almost imperceptible tremor of the song beneath the gloom's oppressive blanket. It was like trying to hear a whisper in a roaring wind, but she found it. A faint current pulling her deeper towards the heartwood. Her first real challenge came at the River of Whispers. Usually a clear, babbling brook, it was now sluggish and murky, its banks choked with dark, tangled weeds. A heavy fog hung low over the water, and the air here felt heavy, laden with a silent sorrow. Elara could feel the river's distress, its once joyful song reduced to a mournful dirge. "It's sick," she whispered, her heart aching. Pip zipped around her, then hovered over a particularly dark patch of weeds. Elara knelt, placing her hands, still faintly glowing, on the bank. She closed her eyes and focused, drawing on the energy of the glade within her. She felt the gloom's tendrils clinging to the river, draining its vitality. She began to hum, a soft, wordless melody, her personal echo of the song of the earth. The green light on her hands brightened, extending tendrils of its own, not of solid light, but of pure, vital energy. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dark weeds began to recede. Their leaves, once dull and brittle, softened. A faint clear current began to ripple beneath the murky surface. The fog thinned, revealing glimpses of the other side. It was a small victory, but it filled Elara with renewed determination. She had not just observed the gloom's effect, she had actively, however slightly, pushed it back. As she crossed the now less murky river on stepping stones, Elara noticed something else. Small, furry creatures, squirrels, field mice, even a timid deer, that had been cowering in the shadows, began to emerge. Their eyes, though still wary, held a flicker of curiosity, drawn by the gentle light and the faint healing hum that emanated from Elara. She offered them some of her berries, and they accepted with cautious trust, a testament to the glade's inherent goodness, even in the encroaching darkness. The deeper she ventured, the more pervasive the gloom became. The trees grew more grotesque, their bark scarred, their leaves a sickly gray. The very air seemed to press down on her, stealing her breath, whispering doubts into her mind. "You are too small. You are alone. The gloom is too strong. Ani? Anidinamida." But Elara remembered Nana Maeve's words, and the river stone in her pocket. She held it tight, feeling its cool, smooth surface, a tangible link to resilience. She played her mother's flute, its simple, clear notes cutting through the oppressive silence, reminding her of the glade's vibrant song. Each note was a tiny act of defiance, a spark of light against the encroaching darkness. One afternoon, she stumbled upon a grove of ancient, towering oaks. But these were not glorious sentinels. They were twisted, their branches bare and skeletal, their roots torn from the earth as if by some unseen force. The gloom here was thick, almost suffocating. Elara felt a wave of profound despair wash over her, a sorrow so deep it threatened to buckle her knees. She recognized it as the tree's own suffering, magnified by the gloom. Pip, for the first time, seemed agitated, darting frantically around her head. Elara knew she couldn't pass by. She closed her eyes, placing her hands on the cracked bark of the nearest oak. The green light surged, but this time, it felt like she was pushing against a solid wall. The gloom resisted, actively fighting back, trying to overwhelm her senses with despair. No, she thought. I will not give in. She focused on the memory of the glade, of Nana Maeve's smile, of the vibrant green of new growth. She channeled not just power, but empathy, love, and a fierce will to heal. She envisioned the trees as they once were, magnificent and strong, singing their own ancient song. Slowly, painstakingly, the resistance lessened. The green light intensified, flowing into the tree, not just fighting the gloom, but nourishing the life force beneath it. It took hours. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and orange, but the light of the glade, channeled by Elara, pulsed steadily. When she finally pulled her hands away, exhausted but exhilarated, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of green could be seen on the oak's bark. The oppressive despair lifted, replaced by a profound, if fragile, peace. The trees were not fully healed, but the gloom's grip had loosened. They would recover, given time. Elara had not just pushed back the gloom, she had planted a seed of hope. As Elara continued her journey, the world around her transformed into a monochromatic landscape of gray and black. The vibrant colors of the deepwood had vanished, replaced by the gloom's suffocating palette. The air grew heavy, thick with an almost palpable silence, as if sound itself had been swallowed. The only light was the faint, unwavering glow from Elara's hands, and the tiny persistent shimmer of Pip, who now seemed to glow with a little more intensity, perhaps drawing strength from Elara's resolve. The ground became uneven, treacherous, covered in a sticky black residue that clung to her boots. The trees, if they could still be called trees, were skeletal husks, their branches reaching like desperate clawed hands towards a sky that was perpetually overcast. The song of the earth was almost entirely silenced here, replaced by a low, guttural hum, a resonance of sorrow and emptiness that vibrated in Elara's very bones. She felt the heartwood, a faint, struggling pulse very near now, but also completely engulfed. The gloom wasn't just a force of decay, it was a force of illusion. Shadows twisted into menacing shapes, whispering fears into her mind. She saw fleeting glimpses of Nana Maeve, distorted and sorrowful, urging her to turn back. She saw the glade, withered and dead. A future she desperately fought against. But Elara had learned to trust her senses, especially the unwavering pull of the song, however faint, and the constant presence of Pip. She would close her eyes, breathe deeply, and recenter herself, focusing on the green light in her hands, on the riverstone, on the flute's silent promise. One evening, as the last vestiges of twilight faded, Elara found herself at the edge of a vast, still lake. Its surface was black, reflecting nothing, and from its depths rose a swirling mist, thick with the gloom's essence. This was the Lake of Echoes, Nana Maeve had warned, where the gloom's power was strongest, twisting memories and doubts into powerful illusions. To reach the heartwood, she had to cross it. As she hesitated, the mist began to coalesce, forming shifting figures on the lake's surface. They were her own fears, made manifest, the fear of failure, the fear of being alone, the fear that her light was not enough. A towering, shadowy figure, vaguely humanoid but without form, rose from the mist, its eyes like hollow voids. It did not speak with words, but with a torrent of despair that flooded Elara's mind, threatening to extinguish her spirit. You are nothing. Your efforts are futile. The glade is lost. All is lost. Kashash. Elara stumbled back, clutching her chest, the weight of the despair almost unbearable. The green light in her hands flickered, threatening to vanish. Pip darted around her head, chirping frantically, but its tiny form seemed insignificant against the looming shadow. Then, she remembered the flute. With trembling fingers, she raised it to her lips. She didn't know what melody to play, so she simply poured her heart into it, her hope, her fear, her love for the glade, her desperate need for the song to return. A single clear note emerged, pure and resonant, cutting through the oppressive silence of the gloom. It was followed by another, and another, until a simple, beautiful melody filled the air. It wasn't the full song of the earth, but it was her song, an echo of the glade's own heart. The shadowy figure recoiled, its form momentarily wavering. The despair in Ilara's mind lessened. She continued to play, each note a step forward, a beacon of defiance. The green light in her hands flared, now stronger than ever, synchronized with the melody. The music was not an attack, but an affirmation of life, of hope, of connection. The gloom could not touch pure melody, pure hope. The shadowy figures on the lake's surface recoiled further, dissolving back into the mist. A path, faintly shimmering with the green light from her hands, appeared across the black waters. It was narrow, precarious, but it was there. With renewed courage, Ilara stepped onto the path, her flute still playing, its melody weaving a protective spell around her. Pip settled on her shoulder, a tiny vibrating anchor of companionship. The crossing was long, the mist still swirling with faint receding wisps of shadow, but the music kept them safe. When she finally reached the other side, the path vanished behind her, and the lake returned to its silent, dark stillness. She was now at the threshold of the heartwood. Before her stood the heartwood tree, or what remained of it. It was a colossal sentinel, its trunk wider than any she had ever seen, its ancient branches reaching towards the heavens like frozen lightning bolts. But it was not glorious. The gloom had consumed it entirely. Its bark was a uniform, dull black, devoid of texture or life. No leaves adorned its branches, only skeletal twigs. A pervasive, unnatural silence hung around it, a vacuum where the vibrant song of the earth should have been. The air was cold, heavy, and dead. At the base of the massive trunk, the gloom was deepest, churning like a dark, viscous pool. It pulsed with a sickening rhythm, drawing all light, all sound, all life into its depths. Ilara could feel the heartwood suffering acutely now, a deep, resonant ache in her own heart. It was barely alive, its pulse so faint it was almost imperceptible. Pip, usually so active, settled on her shoulder, its tiny body trembling. Even its iridescent glow seemed dimmed by the sheer oppressive power of the gloom at its source. Ilara walked towards the tree, her footsteps unnaturally loud in the silence. The green light in her hands was now a brilliant emerald, throbbing with an intensity that surprised even her. She knew this was it. This was the true test, the moment she had trained for, the purpose of her journey. She reached the base of the heartwood, placing her hands, palms flat, on its cold, black bark. The sensation was chilling, like touching death itself. The gloom recoiled slightly from her touch, hissing softly, a sound like dry leaves skittering across stone. But it was fleeting. The gloom was deeply entrenched. She closed her eyes, trying to find the song within the heartwood. There was nothing, only the suffocating presence of the gloom. Despair threatened to overwhelm her again, a deeper, colder despair than before. The sheer magnitude of the task seemed impossible. How could one small girl, with a fragile green light, rekindle the song of a world tree consumed by such darkness? Hannah Maeve's words echoed, "Your task is not to destroy but to rekindle. Every living thing, even those touched by shadow, carries a flicker of the original light." Ilara understood. She couldn't fight the gloom with force. She had to remind the heartwood of its own song, to awaken the flicker of light that Hannah Maeve spoke of. She had to give it her light, her hope, her connection to the glade. Taking a deep breath, Ilara pushed all her energy, all her love, all her being into her hands. The green light surged, flowing from her palms into the black bark of the tree. It was not just light, it was life. It was the warmth of the glade, the clarity of the river of whispers, the resilience of the ancient oaks, the joy of Pip's flight, the comforting embrace of Hannah Maeve. It was the song, not just an echo, but a direct, powerful channel from her own heart to the heartwood's core. The gloom screamed, a silent, piercing shriek that vibrated through the earth. It tried to push back, to sever her connection, to consume her light. Dark tendrils lashed out from the base of the tree, attempting to wrap around her, to drain her. But Ilara held firm. She pictured the glade, vibrant and alive. She pictured the future, children playing under the heartwood's renewed canopy. She poured every ounce of her spirit into the connection. The green light pulsed faster, stronger, not just entering the tree but spreading, a network of emerald veins beneath the black surface. Slowly, painstakingly, a miracle began to unfold. A faint, golden glow, almost imperceptible at first, began to emanate from deep within the heartwood's core. It was the heartwood's own light, its own song, stirred from its slumber. The green light from Ilara's hands met it, intertwining, amplifying. The gloom recoiled further, hissing and shrieking, struggling against the resurgence of light and life. It fought desperately, but it was being starved, not by force but by the overwhelming purity of the song. Where the green and golden light touched, the blackness of the gloom began to crack, to dissipate, turning into wisps of gray smoke that vanished into the cold air. It was an agonizing process. Ilara felt her own strength draining, her vision blurring at the edges. Her body trembled, but her will remained unbroken. Pip, on her shoulder, let out a tiny, high-pitched trill, a sound of pure encouragement. The river stone in her pocket felt warm now, radiating a quiet strength. Finally, with a soft, resonant hum that vibrated through the entire forest, the heartwood tree awakened. A wave of shimmering, golden-green light burst from its trunk, pushing back the gloom with an undeniable force. The black bark began to crack and peel, revealing a vibrant living wood beneath, glowing with an inner light. Tiny, emerald leaves unfurled from its skeletal branches, growing at an astonishing speed, until the colossal tree was once again covered in a magnificent canopy of shimmering green. And then, the song. It began as a low thrum, deep within the earth, then rose into a symphony of pure, resonant sound. It was the heartbeat of the world, a melody of life, of growth, of joy, filling the silence of the deep wood, washing away the last vestiges of the gloom's sorrow. The air filled with a sweet, fresh scent, and the light of the newly awakened heartwood bathed the entire area in a warm, golden-green glow. Ilara collapsed, utterly spent, but a wide, relieved smile graced her lips. The green light on her hands had faded, but she felt a profound sense of peace. The heartwood was alive. The song had returned. As Ilara lay at the base of the now magnificent heartwood tree, exhausted but content, the deep wood began its healing. The golden-green light of the heartwood spread outwards like a benevolent wave, chasing away the remaining shadows of the gloom. The skeletal trees Ilara had passed on her journey began to sprout fresh leaves, their twisted branches straightening. The murky river of whispers cleared, its waters sparkling, its gentle babble returning. Birds, their songs long silenced, began to chirp tentatively, then burst into a joyous chorus. The silence was replaced by the vibrant symphony of a healthy forest. Pip, the hummingbird, darted around her head, its iridescent wings catching the new light, then landed gently on her forehead, nudging her with its tiny beak. Ilara giggled, a sound of pure relief. She felt the heartwood song resonating within her, a quiet hum of gratitude and renewal. It took her several days to make her way back to the Whisperwind glade. The journey was utterly different. The paths were clear, bathed in dappled sunlight filtering through lush canopies. The air was sweet, with the scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. Forest creatures, vibrant and lively, peered out from behind bushes, no longer wary, but curious and friendly. Ilara, though still tired, felt lighter, her spirit soaring with the returning life of the deep wood. She offered healing touches to scarred trees and weary animals, her green light, though fainter now, still a source of comfort and growth. As she approached the ancient stone arch of the glade, she saw them. All the glade dwellers were gathered, their faces alight with anticipation. Nana Maeve stood at the forefront, her eyes shining with tears of joy and relief. The moment Ilara stepped through the arch, the entire glade erupted in cheers, a symphony of happy cries and applause. Ilara was enveloped in a warm embrace by Nana Maeve, who held her tightly, her voice thick with emotion. "You did it, my Whisperwind keeper. You brought back the song. You saved us all." The glade was more vibrant than ever, its colors deeper, its light brighter. The song of the earth, full and resonant, filled every corner, a joyous celebration of life. Elara was hailed as a hero, but she felt only a deep humility. She had simply listened, trusted, and connected. In the days that followed, Elara recounted her journey, her voice filled with wonder. She spoke of the gloom's despair, the challenge of the Lake of Echoes, and the ultimate triumph of the Heartwood song. The glade dwellers listened with rapt attention, their faces reflecting awe and gratitude. Elara's role as the Whisperwind Keeper was now fully realized. She continued to train, but her lessons were different. She learned how to maintain the balance, how to listen to the subtle shifts in the song, how to ensure the gloom never returned. Her hands still glowed faintly green when she worked with plants, or healed a small creature, a gentle reminder of the power she had channeled. Years passed. The Deepwood flourished, becoming a place of wonder and beauty once more. The Heartwood tree stood as a magnificent beacon, its golden green light visible, even from the glade, a constant source of life and magic. Elara grew into a wise and revered elder, much like Nana Maeve, her heart forever connected to the song of the earth. She taught the younger generations, sharing the stories of her journey, teaching them to listen, to feel, to nurture the delicate balance of their world. The glade prospered, a haven of peace and harmony. The whispers in the wind were no longer warnings of danger, but lullabies of contentment, carrying the sweet melody of the Heartwood song. And sometimes on quiet nights, Elara would take out her mother's flute and play, a gentle tune that echoed the glade's enduring spirit, a reminder that even the smallest light, fueled by courage and love, could banish the deepest shadows and bring forth the brightest dawn. The song of the earth continued to sing, a timeless lullaby, promising peace and magic for all the days to come.